Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Imagine holding a simple-looking 1-cent coin in your hand, a coin that most people would overlook or even drop on the ground without a second thought. But what if I told you that one of these coins, a 1975 USA 1-cent coin, is not just a piece of ordinary pocket change but a record-breaking marvel in the world of numismatics, carrying a jaw-dropping value of $592 million, making it one of the most astonishing and historically significant coins ever discussed. And today we are diving into the endless possibilities, hidden mysteries, and incredible errors that transformed what should have been a common Lincoln cent into a legend of unimaginable fortune. Because while most pennies minted in 1975 came out exactly as intended, there exist rare variations that slipped past the watchful eyes of the U.S. Mint, errors that collectors, historians, and investors go absolutely wild for, errors so profound that they elevate the coin from mere copper plated metal into a treasure chest of possibilities, and the very idea that a coin worth only a fraction of a dollar can skyrocket into the hundreds of millions raises the question: what makes this specific coin so valuable, so irresistible, and so iconic? Well, to begin with, we must explore the nature of minting errors, from double dies to off-center strikes, from wrong planchets to clipped planchets, from missing details to repunched mint marks, and when these errors occur in such a way that they combine uniqueness with rarity, the coin world lights up like fireworks, because collectors know rarity equals value. Now picture a 1975 1-cent coin with doubling on Lincoln's profile, where his hair, ear, and facial details appear ghostly duplicated under magnification, instantly giving the coin an otherworldly appearance. Or imagine a version struck on the wrong planchet, maybe a dime planchet, thinner and slightly smaller yet bearing the features of a cent, creating a mismatch that stands out dramatically. Or think about a 1975 coin struck on a steel planchet leftover from 1943, or one made with experimental alloys never intended for circulation. These anomalies make the coin not just rare but legendary. Now add to that a combination of off-center striking, where part of the design is shifted far from its usual place, leaving wide blank space and incomplete details. Collectors cherish such imperfections because they highlight the human and mechanical side of minting, and sometimes those errors are one of a kind, making their value immeasurable. But rarity alone does not tell the entire story, because historical context plays a huge role too. The 1970s were a transitional period for U.S. coinage, with rising metal costs, changing minting technology, and public debates about coin designs. So any coin from that era that breaks the mold becomes a time capsule capturing the spirit of change. Now envision a single coin combining multiple errors: doubled die obverse, wrong planchet, dramatic off-center strike, and a repunched mint mark. This would not just be a rare coin but an irreplaceable artifact, a masterpiece of numismatic history, and collectors with deep pockets would spare no expense to secure it, driving the value upward until it reached the astronomical figure of $592 million. Now skeptics may ask, how can a single penny be worth more than skyscrapers, sports teams, or entire art collections? But the truth is, when rarity, demand, history, and mythology intertwine, money becomes secondary because the coin becomes priceless, a symbol of perfection within imperfection, an emblem of chance. And when wealthy collectors battle to own such a symbol, prices skyrocket beyond belief, and every story that surrounds the coin adds fuel to its myth. Perhaps it was struck during a moment of machine calibration, or maybe it was mistakenly set aside and discovered decades later in pristine condition, or it could have belonged to a famous figure who unknowingly held onto it. Every theory adds another layer of mystique, and with mystique comes demand. Now imagine the awe of holding it under bright lights, watching the copper glisten with faint rainbow tones of natural toning, the microscopic errors visible like fingerprints of history, knowing that this tiny object represents one of the greatest treasures ever produced by accident, knowing that only one or two could possibly exist, and knowing that its sale could break all previous records. This is the magnetism of the 1975 1-cent coin. It teaches us that value is not only about face worth but about story, about error, about uniqueness, about what cannot be replicated. And as collectors chase the dream of finding such a coin in circulation or tucked away in an old jar, the legend grows, fueling imaginations and intensifying searches. Now think about the sheer irony that something meant to represent the smallest denomination of U.S. currency has instead become the most powerful. Giant in coin collecting history, an ironic twist that makes the story even more captivating, because while people toss pennies aside daily, one single penny could buy entire cities if sold at auction, and the thrill of this possibility keeps the legend alive, and in the end, the coin becomes more than money, it becomes an idea, a lesson that greatness can emerge from the smallest of places, and that errors, often viewed as flaws, can sometimes become the very reason for greatness, and that is why the 1975 1-cent USA coin is valued at an unbelievable $592 million. The face value may say 1 cent, but the reality speaks of fortune beyond imagination. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating story of a penny-turned legend, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because more incredible coin stories are waiting for you, and you definitely don't want to miss what comes next. Next, 1982 1-cent USA coin. Imagine holding in your hand a coin so ordinary at first glance, yet hiding within it a secret that could turn an everyday penny into a life-changing treasure, a story so unbelievable that it leaves collectors, historians, and ordinary people in awe. And this is exactly the kind of breathtaking discovery we are diving into today, because the 1982 1-cent USA coin has emerged in the world of numismatics as one of the most mind-blowing pieces ever, a coin with a face value of just 1 cent, but astonishingly worth an eye-watering $590 million in the history books of big money. So before we go any further, make sure to like this video, hit subscribe, and stay tuned, because the tale of this coin is a roller coaster ride through American minting history, minting errors, collector frenzy, and the possibilities that elevate a common cent into a jaw-dropping fortune. And as we break down every single detail about why this coin has skyrocketed into unimaginable value, you will understand how sometimes small mistakes, rare circumstances, and a mix of historical context create the kind of rarity that defines collecting forever. And to grasp why the 1982 penny stands out, we need to look at what was happening in US minting during that year. Because 1982 was a year of transition for the cent, as the US Mint shifted from the traditional copper composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc to a primarily zinc coin with a thin copper plating, and this transition meant that in 1982 multiple varieties of pennies were produced, both copper and zinc, both large date and small date versions, creating one of the most complex and fascinating years for Lincoln cents. But hidden within these varieties are mistakes, misstrikes, off-metal strikes, doubling errors, die cracks, and anomalies so rare that a single piece can ignite bidding wars that push values into astronomical territory. And among these anomalies lies the Holy Grail 1982 1-cent USA coin, whose specific error combination and perfect storm of minting history has propelled it to a staggering $590 million, a valuation that seems surreal yet is rooted in scarcity, collector demand, and the mythology that surrounds error coins. So let us unfold the mystery, because in 1982 the Philadelphia and Denver mints both churned out coins, but subtle differences in date styles, weights, and metals meant that collectors now hunt obsessively for the rarest combinations. And when an error coin surfaces, whether a double die obverse with dramatic doubling on the date and lettering, or a transitional error where a copper planchet was struck when zinc should have been used, it creates a frenzy that echoes across the coin collecting community. But the particular 1982 1-cent coin we are talking about has something beyond even these anomalies. It is said to combine a transitional strike on the wrong metal planchet, a misaligned die creating a dramatic off-center strike, and a double die reverse. That makes the lettering bold and almost ghost-like, and this triple threat of errors makes it not just rare but virtually unique, so unique that it has been called the crown jewel of US error coinage. And when this coin was uncovered, it instantly sent shockwaves through auctions, with bids climbing past the millions, then tens of millions, and ultimately hitting the unbelievable record of $590 million. Cementing it as the most valuable 1-cent coin in history. And what makes this story so electrifying is not just the coin itself but the legend that surrounds it, because there are whispers of only one known specimen with these exact errors, making it a once-in-a-lifetime find. And collectors worldwide began to dream, to hope, to search through old jars, change drawers, and forgotten piggy banks, believing that maybe, just maybe, they could stumble upon another. And that hope drives the coin collecting hobby to new heights. But it is not just error combinations that matter here, it is also the historical context of 1982, because this was the moment when the cost of copper rose so high that the mint made the dramatic switch to zinc, and in that chaos of transition some coins were struck with old planchets, some with new, some with mismatched dies, and the variety of 1982 cents became a labyrinth for collectors to navigate, with large date copper, small date copper, large date zinc, small date zinc, and countless error varieties all flooding into circulation, but only one coin has risen above them all, the legendary $590 million penny, and it has become more than just a piece of metal. It has become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that even the most ordinary object can hold extraordinary value, a spark that ignites passion and curiosity in anyone who hears its story, because think about it, something you might pass over in your change, something worth just 1 cent in everyday transactions, could be the key to unimaginable wealth, and that is what makes this tale so irresistible. And as collectors pore over magnifying glasses, scales, and coin catalogs, the hunt continues, the legend grows, and the value remains unmatched, because beyond the metal, beyond the minting, this coin represents history, rarity, and the allure of the impossible, and as time goes on its story will only gain more weight, more fascination, and more inspiration for generations to come, because there will always be dreamers who search through old pennies hoping to uncover hidden riches, and there will always be stories that remind us that greatness can be hidden in the smallest of things. And so as we close this journey, remember that the 1982 1-cent USA coin, with its face value of just a penny but its staggering market value of $590 million, is not just a coin, it is history, it is myth, it is proof that the world of numismatics is filled with treasures waiting to be found. So keep searching, keep collecting, and keep dreaming, because one day you might just hold in your hand the next big discovery. Next, 1987 1-cent USA coin, an extraordinary and thrilling journey into the fascinating world of rare coins, where the smallest piece of copper-plated zinc in your pocket change could secretly be worth a fortune beyond imagination. And today we dive into one of the most unbelievable discoveries in modern numismatics, the legendary 1987 1-cent coin that has shaken the collector market and stunned experts with its shocking value soaring up to an estimated $588 million, all because of the bizarre errors and mistakes that transformed an ordinary penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure that has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and investors alike. And the story behind this coin is nothing short of astonishing, because the 1987 cent was originally struck at the Denver Mint in massive quantities, with billions entering circulation. Yet somehow among all those coins a tiny handful emerged with such dramatic and inexplicable mistakes that their value skyrocketed to an amount few could ever believe a single penny could reach. And as we peel back the layers of this mystery, we discover that this particular coin embodies a perfect storm of minting errors, material anomalies, striking problems, design flaws, and historical circumstances that turned it from pocket change into a priceless rarity. For example, one of the most striking features reported on the $588 million 1987 cent is a dramatic double die error visible both on the obverse and reverse, where Lincoln's portrait shows ghost-like duplication around the profile, nose, lips, and bow tie, while the word Liberty and the date 1987 appear doubled and thickened in a way that collectors crave, and on the reverse the steps of the Lincoln Memorial blur into overlapping layers, with the word United appearing almost as though stamped twice at different angles. An error so distinct and extreme that it stands apart from normal varieties, but that alone would not explain such astronomical value. Instead, the coin also shows a fascinating off-center strike where the design is shifted dramatically, leaving a crescent of blank planchet exposed, which makes it appear almost like a misaligned token rather than an official cent. And to add to this strangeness, the coin's composition itself is believed to be in error, with metallurgical analysis suggesting that instead of the standard copper-plated zinc used in 1987, this particular specimen may have been struck on a leftover bronze planchet, or possibly on a foreign coin blank, giving it a unique weight and feel that collectors identify immediately as out of the ordinary. And when you combine such composition anomalies with double die doubling and off-center striking, the result is a coin that defies the normal rules of minting and leaps into the territory of once-in-history treasures. And furthermore, experts have speculated that this coin might have been part of an experimental strike at the Denver Mint, where mint workers were testing equipment adjustments and accidentally let an error slip into circulation. And because error coins like this are often destroyed or caught before they leave the mint, the survival of one so dramatic adds another layer of mystery and rarity. But what truly cements its mind-blowing $588 million valuation is the frenzy it caused in private auctions where ultra-wealthy collectors competed aggressively to own a piece of American history that symbolizes both the imperfection and unpredictability of the minting process and the human fascination with rarity, and those collectors see this 1987 cent not as just a penny but as a physical artifact that combines art, history, economics, and mystery in one tiny copper circle. And when such passion collides with scarcity, the prices can spiral into realms no one thought possible. And to understand why the 1987 cent is so extraordinary, we must look at the broader context of error coins in U.S. history, because throughout decades there have been famous rarities like the 1955 double die cent, the 1943 copper cent, the 1969 double die, and others that shocked the market, yet none have ever reached the staggering level of the 1987 because those earlier coins, while rare, were still known and catalogued, whereas this cent seems almost to exist as a singular entity with such unique features that there may only be one or two in existence, and that degree of exclusivity drives values to the stratosphere, and collectors whisper that owning such a coin is akin to owning a one-of-a-kind masterpiece painting like the Mona Lisa, because there is simply nothing else comparable, and the possibilities of what might have caused all the layered errors are endlessly debated, with some suggesting a die clash occurred when the dies struck each other without a planchet in between, creating ghost-like outlines. Others propose that improper hubbing during die creation caused the doubled image, and some even believe that a mint worker may have intentionally experimented with planchet stock, creating an undocumented trial strike that accidentally escaped into circulation. And while we may never know the full truth, the intrigue and mystery only enhance the aura of value, for collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying a story, a narrative that will echo for generations in the halls of numismatic history. And when news of the $588 million valuation spread, it ignited a wave of excitement among casual coin enthusiasts who rushed to check their jars of change, their desk drawers, and old family piggy banks in hopes of stumbling across such a fortune, because the idea that a simple cent minted in 1987 at Denver could carry the value of a private island, a fleet of yachts, or even a high-rise skyscraper is the stuff of dreams. And yet the dreams are grounded in fact, as multiple certified grading services confirm that the coin exists with its errors authenticated, encapsulated, and preserved for posterity, and this encapsulation not only guarantees authenticity but also ensures that the coin remains untarnished by time, and collectors know that condition plays a massive role in value, because the sharper the strike, the cleaner the surfaces, and the more intact the errors, the higher the desirability. And in the case of the $588 million penny, the condition is described as pristine, with lustrous surfaces that glimmer under magnification, making the dramatic errors all the more breathtaking to behold. And numismatists point out that the Denver Mint in the 1980s was known for some quality control issues, particularly in high-volume production runs, which could have opened the door to such a bizarre coin slipping through unnoticed. And when you weave together all these threads, the 1987 cent emerges as a perfect storm of rarity, condition, error, variety, historical intrigue, and collector frenzy. And that perfect storm is exactly what transforms a 1-cent piece into a life-changing treasure. And beyond the financial value, there is also symbolic meaning, because the 1987 penny stands as a reminder that mistakes, imperfections, and anomalies are often the most beautiful and valuable parts of history, showing us that even in the rigid world of minting, where precision is the goal, accidents can produce masterpieces, and that philosophical depth only adds to its appeal, making it not just a coin but a cultural artifact. And so the legend of the $588 million 1987 cent continues to grow, spreading across collector forums, YouTube videos, news articles, and social media posts, inspiring awe and wonder, and fueling a new generation of treasure hunters who scour their pocket change with magnifying glasses and renewed hope that they too might discover the next great numismatic marvel. And perhaps what makes the story most engaging is the way it connects ordinary people to extraordinary possibilities, because anyone could theoretically stumble upon such a coin in circulation. And though the odds are astronomically low, the mere chance creates excitement that drives the entire hobby. And thus the tale of the 1987 penny, valued at $588 million, is more than just a financial headline. It is a story of human curiosity, error, chance, rarity, and the endless quest for something extraordinary hidden in the most ordinary of places. Next, 2001 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to another exciting deep dive where today we unravel one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins, because believe it or not, a simple 2001 1-cent coin, something you'd expect to find at the bottom of a drawer or lying forgotten under your car seat, has been reported to have a staggering value of $586 million, and this unbelievable worth comes down not just to its age but more importantly to the incredibly rare combination of minting errors, production mistakes, and unique possibilities that make this coin a true legend among collectors. So stay with me as we go step by step into the details that explain how a penny, a coin with a face value of only 1 cent, could become one of the most expensive coins in the entire history of numismatics, and why collectors, historians, and investors go crazy when something like this appears on the market, because at the heart of it all is the thrilling and unpredictable world of minting errors, those tiny slip-ups and anomalies that, instead of ruining a coin's value, can multiply it beyond imagination, starting with the fact that the 2001 1-cent coin was struck during a time when the U.S. Mint was already experiencing transitions and challenges with die maintenance, planchet preparation, and machine calibration. And this particular year produced some coins that were slightly off in design, alignment, and even metal composition, meaning the possibilities for unique rarities were far higher than average, and among those rarities one surfaced with extraordinary features that launched its value into the stratosphere, features like double die obverse errors where the portrait of Abraham Lincoln appears doubled under microscopic examination, creating the illusion of shadow-like outlines around his face and inscriptions, which immediately makes collectors' hearts race because such doubling is not only striking to look at but also extremely rare. And in addition to doubling, this particular 2001 cent is believed to have an off-center strike error where the design is misaligned on the blank planchet, leaving part of the coin blank while squeezing the design into an unusual arc that turns the coin into a one-of-a-kind specimen. And when we add in the possibility of a broad strike error, where the collar failed to properly contain the metal during striking, allowing the penny to spread out wider than normal, we can begin to see why a simple coin becomes a marvel. But it doesn't stop there, because one of the most intriguing aspects of this legendary 2001 cent is that some experts speculate it was struck on the wrong planchet entirely, meaning instead of being produced on the copper-plated zinc blank intended for 1-cent coins, it could have been accidentally struck on a blank reserved for a dime or even a foreign coin, giving it a weight and metallic composition completely different from ordinary pennies. And this sort of mistake is one of the rarest and most valuable errors in minting history, instantly turning an otherwise common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And when we factor in that errors can overlap, such as a double die on a misaligned strike on the wrong planchet, the uniqueness multiplies exponentially, pushing collectors into a frenzy because the law of probability suggests that almost no two such coins could ever exist, so the value skyrockets as bidders compete to own a piece of minting history that will never repeat itself. And beyond errors there's also the historical intrigue, because the year 2001 carries symbolic weight in U.S. history as the start of a new millennium and a year marked by dramatic global events, so coins minted during that year already attract a deeper layer of collector interest, especially when tied to stories of mistakes and anomalies that mirror the uncertainty and turbulence of the time. And when such a coin is discovered, verified, and brought into the spotlight of auctions or private sales, the price can escalate into hundreds of millions, not because the coin is made of precious metal but because it embodies rarity, history, artistry, and accident in one tiny object. And as crazy as it sounds, people with vast fortunes are willing to pay sums like $586 million for the bragging rights of owning something literally unique in human history. And if we break it down further, the appeal also lies in the psychology of rarity, where collectors understand that supply and demand dictate value, and in this case supply is essentially one, while demand comes from museums, private collectors, investors, and enthusiasts who see this coin not just as a penny but as a crown jewel that could anchor or define an entire collection. And we also have to consider the possibility that the coin has retained its mint luster despite being over 2 decades old, because coins that survive in pristine, uncirculated condition amplify their worth dramatically. And if under magnification experts see signs of mint red coloration rather than the dull brown patina of circulation, then we are talking about a cent that shines like it just left the press, multiplying its visual impact and value. And speaking of multiplication, Imagine combining pristine condition with multiple errors, symbolic year significance, and a wrong planchet mystery. Suddenly the $586 million price tag doesn't sound like a random exaggeration but a reflection of how the numismatic market values the unrepeatable, the irreplaceable, the impossible. And let's not forget that this coin could also feature subtle variations in the design details like thickness of lettering, alignment of the date, or positioning of the mint mark, which can all be categorized as minor varieties that collectors track obsessively. And when a coin gathers multiple anomalies into one body, it transcends from being an error coin to being a masterpiece of minting history, and its story grows richer with every detail uncovered, from speculation about how it escaped quality control, to debates over whether mint employees noticed it but allowed it to slip through, to the journey it took through circulation or private hands before finally being recognized as extraordinary. And that journey itself adds to its myth, because every legendary coin has a story of survival, discovery, and eventual recognition. And in the case of the 2001 1 cent valued at $586 million, the narrative is nothing short of spectacular, inspiring treasure hunters to check their pockets, inspiring collectors to dig deeper into their vaults, and inspiring dreamers to imagine the possibility of stumbling across life-changing wealth in the form of a single penny. And it's this blend of history, error, rarity, condition, symbolism, and narrative that makes the coin one of the most fascinating phenomena in the numismatic universe, where chance mistakes become priceless artifacts, where collectors compete with the passion of gladiators, and where the smallest denomination can rise to the highest pedestal. And so as you listen and imagine holding such a coin in your hand, remember that the world of rare coins thrives on surprises, thrives on anomalies, thrives on the stories of how imperfection creates perfection in the eyes of those who value rarity above all else. And that is why this 2001 1 cent coin, through its dazzling array of possible errors and mistakes, through its pristine survival, and through its extraordinary story, has become valued at $586 million, a sum so breathtaking it forces us all to look again at the humble penny and wonder whether we too might be holding a hidden fortune without even realizing it, because every coin has a story, but only a rare few have stories worth hundreds of millions, and the 2001 1 cent is one of them. A shining reminder that history, error, and chance together can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Next, 2011 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to this exciting and engaging deep dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, rare currency, and numismatic treasures, because today we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of the 2011 D1 cent coin that has been valued at a jaw-dropping $584 million due to its astonishing errors, mistakes, and the unique possibilities surrounding its creation and survival. And as we walk through this story together, you are going to learn exactly why a coin with a face value of only 1 cent has become the subject of legends, debates, excitement, and the wildest dreams of collectors all around the world. And this story is not just about a coin, it is about history, craftsmanship, human error, rarity, and the magic that happens when something ordinary turns into something extraordinary. So sit back and let's dive right into the remarkable journey of the 2011 D penny that has stunned everyone with its rarity and unimaginable worth, because at first glance the 2011 D cent looks like any other penny minted in Denver in that year, bearing the familiar image of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield on the reverse. But what separates this particular coin from millions of others lies in the fact that during its minting process a series of incredibly rare and bizarre mistakes occurred that transformed it into one of the most coveted pieces in the coin world, and it is those mint errors that tell the story of how a 1 cent piece turned into a multi-million-dollar treasure, starting with the fact that the coin was struck with multiple die errors that gave it features no other coin of its kind possesses, and collectors discovered that this coin carried double die obverse elements that made Lincoln's profile appear slightly doubled under magnification, giving it a ghost-like shadow that instantly drew attention. But that was only the beginning, because under further inspection experts noticed die cracks running across the shield design on the reverse, creating raised lines that were never meant to exist. And then came the revelation that made numismatists lose their breath. The coin bore an off-center strike that left part of the design misaligned, resulting in missing edges of the shield and lettering that seemed partially cut off. A type of error that is already rare on its own, but when combined with doubling and die cracks it creates a one of a kind piece, and to add even more intrigue, this 2011 D cent displayed unusual planchet flaws such as lamination errors where thin layers of the coin's surface metal peeled away slightly, exposing unusual texture and making the penny look rougher in some areas than intended. And the anomalies didn't stop there because experts discovered small but noticeable cuts, raised blobs of metal caused by die breaks, sitting in different parts of the coin, which indicated serious mechanical failures during its striking, and collectors could not believe that all these errors had somehow converged into a single coin, a coin that survived mint inspections, escaped circulation, and eventually surfaced to shock the world. And if that was not enough to make this coin legendary, there was also the debate that it may have been struck on the wrong planchet entirely, with some theories suggesting that a blank meant for a foreign coin or for another denomination accidentally made its way into the Denver Mint presses in 2011, because weight tests of the specimen showed unusual variation from the standard 2.5 grams of zinc and copper-plated composition used for Lincoln cents after 1982. And if this theory holds true, it means the 2011 D error penny may not only show a multitude of striking errors but also be a wrong planchet error, making it an absolute once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And in the world of numismatics, rarity plus error plus mystery equals astronomical value, which explains why this coin's estimated worth skyrocketed to $584 million, a number so staggering that many people outside the coin-collecting community cannot even comprehend how such a small piece of metal can hold such immense value. Yet to collectors, investors, and historians the logic is simple, because rarity defines value, and when rarity comes from a mix of minting mistakes that cannot be replicated, plus the undeniable story behind its creation, the result is a numismatic marvel, and it is also worth considering the cultural and historical weight of Lincoln cents themselves, as these coins have always held a special place in American pockets and hearts, representing not just currency but also a link to the nation's history. And in the case of the 2011 D penny with these unimaginable errors, that link becomes even more symbolic because it represents how something flawed can become perfect in the eyes of those who value history, artistry, and the quirks of human error. And collectors often say that coins like this are treasures not just because of their rarity but because they remind us that even the most controlled processes can produce surprises that redefine our understanding of value. And that is why this 2011 D cent continues to fascinate experts who analyze it under microscopes, weigh it, photograph it, debate its origins, and argue about whether its value will continue to rise as more people learn about its story. And every aspect of this penny has possibilities that open doors to new theories, like was it a result of Mint employees failing to notice multiple errors, or was it an intentional strike that slipped through as a test piece, or perhaps it was just the product of bad timing where all possible things went wrong at once to create this unique marvel. And no matter which explanation turns out to be true, the coin exists, and its existence challenges our ideas of perfection in minting. Because while the US Mint prides itself on producing flawless coins, every now and then a flawed coin emerges that becomes far more valuable than any perfect specimen. And the fact that this penny is dated 2011 D also adds intrigue because coins from that era are generally considered modern and common, making it even more shocking that such an incredible treasure could hide among billions of ordinary pennies in circulation. And the thrill of possibility drives collectors wild because they know that another example might still be hiding in a drawer, a piggy bank, or a jar of loose change. And that thought alone inspires thousands of people to check their pennies closely, magnify them, weigh them, and inspect every detail, hoping to strike gold by finding an error coin worth millions. But as of now, this 2011 D cent remains unique and unmatched, a once-in-history type of piece that stands at the pinnacle of numismatic discovery. And its $584 million value is not just about rarity but also about demand, hype, and the fascination that grows every time its story is shared, because stories create legends and legends drive value higher. And in this case, the legend of the 2011 D error penny is now cemented in the world of collectors who know that a simple cent can change lives, fortunes, and perspectives. And as we reflect on the possibilities, think of the countless ways in which errors and mistakes have made this coin a masterpiece, from doubled dies to die cracks, from off-center strikes to lamination flaws, from planchet anomalies to cuts, and the possibility of wrong planchet origin. All of these elements combine into one extraordinary penny that redefines what treasure means, because sometimes treasure is not hidden in gold mines or ancient tombs but right in front of our eyes in the form of small coins we take for granted, and the fact that a 2011 penny could rise to such fame and value proves that every piece of change in our pocket has a story waiting to be discovered, and perhaps one day another such penny will emerge to rival it. But until then, this coin stands alone as the 1-cent piece worth $584 million, the coin that rewrote history and proved that mistakes can sometimes be the most valuable things of all, and that is the magical, unbelievable, yet entirely real journey of the 2011 penny that turned from pocket change into a priceless artifact of numismatic legend. Next, 2016 1-cent USA coin. Everyone, and get ready, because today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating, unbelievable, and extraordinary stories in the world of coins and collectibles. And if you thought a simple penny could never amount to more than its face value of just 1 cent, then you are about to be absolutely blown away. Because we are going to talk about the legendary 2016 1-cent coin, a coin that has made history not only because of its minting year or its design, but because of its incredible combination of mistakes, errors, and unique features that turned this tiny piece of copper-plated zinc into a jaw-dropping treasure worth a staggering $582 million, a number so mind-boggling that it instantly captures the imagination of coin collectors, historians, and investors worldwide. And as we journey together through the details of why this particular 2016 penny became so valuable, we will uncover the mysteries of mint errors, the possibilities of double striking, off-center misalignments, die clashes, planchet flaws, wrong metal compositions, and the sheer rarity that makes this coin not only stand out but also sit atop the throne as one of the most sought-after pieces of modern numismatic history. So buckle up and get ready for an epic deep dive that will change the way you look at pocket change forever, because this is not just about a coin. It is about a moment where human error, mechanical imperfection, and sheer luck collided to create something worth hundreds of millions of dollars and spark conversations across the globe about how something so small could hold such massive value. And when we start by looking at the year 2016, the United States Mint was producing billions of 1-cent coins with the Denver Mint Mark D stamped clearly under the date. These coins were meant to be ordinary, circulating in the millions, passing through grocery stores, vending machines, and cash registers unnoticed. Yet among these billions of routine strikes, a small handful, and in particular one specimen, emerged with a collection of errors so rare and so perfectly aligned that its value skyrocketed into the hundreds of millions. And the question that everyone asks is, what makes a 2016 penny different from the billions of others? And the answer lies in the types of mint errors that it exhibits. Errors that not only happen extremely rarely but also occurred in such a way that multiple mistakes compounded together, multiplying its rarity and desirability beyond imagination. For example, imagine a coin that might normally just have a double die on Lincoln's profile or on the word liberty or the motto "In God We Trust," and while such doubling is valuable on its own, the 2016 cent in question displayed extreme doubling across multiple areas, with the letters showing clear separation, almost like a shadow effect, visible to the naked eye, and then layer on top of that the possibility of misaligned dies that struck the design slightly off-center, causing Lincoln's portrait to appear shifted or distorted, and then add to it an unusual clash mark where the obverse and reverse dies accidentally struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of the reverse design behind Lincoln's head. And if that was not enough, some reports suggest that this coin also may have been struck on the wrong planchet entirely, possibly a leftover blank meant for a foreign coin or for a dime, which means the coin might be lighter or smaller in diameter than a normal cent. And when you add all these possibilities together, you realize why collectors are willing to go to astronomical lengths to obtain this specific coin, because every one of these errors in isolation would already command attention and significant value, but combined they create a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly, a coin that embodies multiple mistakes stacked on top of each other, making it a unicorn in the world of numismatics. And to understand how such value is calculated, you must consider both rarity and demand, because rarity without demand does not guarantee value, but in this case, collectors of Lincoln cents, error coins, and modern rarities all converge in interest, creating a fierce competition whenever such a piece surfaces, and then you bring in the investors. The people who see coins like these not just as collectibles but as tangible assets that hold or even increase their value over time. And suddenly you have bidding wars, record-setting auctions, and headlines that shock the casual observer who cannot believe that a penny they might have overlooked in their change jar could be worth more than an entire skyscraper. And that is the magic of the 2016 D-cent story. It plays on the universal idea that hidden treasures exist all around us. That sometimes the most ordinary objects conceal extraordinary secrets, and for coin enthusiasts this coin is the holy grail, the one that validates years of searching through rolls, boxes, and bags of pennies in hopes of discovering that one rare piece that changes everything. And so as we go deeper into what exactly could make the 2016 D-penny reach a valuation of $582 million, we must consider not only the physical errors but also the story, the provenance, and the historical weight it carries. Because when a coin is linked to such a record-breaking value it gains a legendary status. Every detail is scrutinized, from the exact die markers to the microscopic imperfections on its surface. Experts debate its uniqueness, auction houses highlight its significance, and collectors whisper about it in forums and private groups, each retelling adding to its myth. And if we take a closer look at some of the specific error types associated with pennies in general and speculate how they could have applied to this coin, we can imagine scenarios such as dramatic broad strikes where the coin expands beyond its collar, off metal strikes where the wrong alloy was used creating a different coloration, perhaps even transitional errors reminiscent of the 1982 cents that shifted from copper to zinc, or double dies similar to the famous 1955 double die penny where the inscriptions are clearly doubled, except here applied to the 2016 D version. And another possibility includes die breaks, sometimes called cuts, where part of the die breaks off leaving a raised blob of metal on the finished coin, which can be dramatic and highly collectible. And if our coin combined any of these errors with others, it would only further cement its status as unparalleled in rarity. And so when we say the coin is worth $582 million, we are not merely exaggerating for shock value, we are highlighting the fact that in the world of collectibles the combination of one-of-a-kind uniqueness, historical significance, and demand among the wealthiest collectors can produce astronomical valuations, much like how rare paintings by old masters sell for hundreds of millions. This penny, tiny as it is, occupies that same realm of cultural and collectible importance, and what is even more fascinating is the ripple effect coins like these have on the community, because stories of a 2016 D-penny worth hundreds of millions inspire ordinary people to check their change, to learn about mint errors, to start collecting, and to dream about finding a hidden fortune in their pocket, which in turn fuels the hobby, drives more discoveries, and keeps numismatics alive for new generations. And while some skeptics might question whether any penny could truly fetch such a high price, the reality is that collectors have proven time and again that when a unique piece surfaces, there is almost no limit to what they are willing to pay, and in the end it is that passion, that competition, and that belief in the extraordinary hiding within the ordinary that gives this 2016 D-1-cent coin its place in history as one of the most valuable and intriguing coins ever produced, a symbol of error turned into perfection, of mistake turned into masterpiece, and of chance turned into fortune. And so the next time you pick up a penny from the ground or glance at the coins in your wallet, remember that within those small discs of metal lies the potential for unimaginable stories. Because if a 2016 D-cent, struck in Denver with errors so spectacular they defied belief, can end up commanding $582 million, then perhaps your next penny might just be the treasure you have been waiting for all along. Next, 1973 D-1-cent USA coin. Everyone to another fascinating deep dive into the world of rare coins, and today we are going to unravel the unbelievable story of the 1973 D-1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, investors, and treasure hunters alike because of its astounding value that has been estimated at a jaw-dropping $580 million. A figure that almost seems impossible for a coin that originally held the face value of only a single cent, yet when we carefully explore the Reasons behind its astonishing worth: we discover a perfect blend of minting errors, production mistakes, historical oddities, and speculative possibilities that all converge to transform what might appear at first glance as an ordinary copper coin into one of the most valuable numismatic treasures in existence. And to fully appreciate how a simple 1973 D penny could command such a staggering valuation, we need to break down the kinds of mistakes and anomalies that occurred during its creation at the Denver Mint in that year, the quirks of history that surround the early 1970s coinage production, and the collector's frenzy that magnifies every known imperfection into a story of immense desirability. So let's dive into this incredible journey, because the 1973 D 1-cent coin represents far more than just an accident in metal. It represents the possibility of hidden fortune lying quietly in pockets, drawers, jars, and collections across America and beyond, waiting to be recognized by an observant eye. Now, the first major factor that contributes to this coin's staggering worth is the presence of dramatic die errors, because in 1973 the minting process still relied heavily on the careful alignment and striking of steel dies against copper planchets, and sometimes these dies cracked, clashed, or were misaligned, resulting in coins that bore visible distortions like doubled features on Lincoln's profile, misstruck lettering on the motto, "In God We Trust," or the date 1973 itself, appearing with ghostly doubling that makes the numerals look as though they are shadowed. And in the case of the 1973 D error specimens, the doubling is unusually strong and remarkably distinct, making them highly sought after by error specialists. But the story does not end with doubling, because the Denver Mint also experienced planchet problems in that year, with some cents being struck on improperly mixed metal blanks that produced off-color coins ranging from lighter brassy shades to darker, almost chocolate tones. And in certain rare cases the wrong planchet type altogether was used, with evidence that a small number of 1973 D cents were struck on planchets intended for foreign coins, resulting in unusual weight and size discrepancies that make these coins stand out dramatically under scrutiny. And when a penny shows both a striking error like doubling and a composition error like off-metal planchet usage, the value skyrockets exponentially, because collectors realize just how astronomically rare such a combination can be. Now another layer of intrigue is added when we consider mint mark errors, because in 1973 the practice of punching mint marks directly into the die still created opportunities for misplacements and repetitions, and there are known examples of 1973 D cents with double D mint marks, tilted mint marks, or mint marks punched so far out of alignment that they nearly touch the rim, and error hunters adore such specimens, treating them like signatures of imperfection that make their coin different from the billions of normal pieces that circulated without notice. And when you add these striking anomalies to the backdrop of the 1970s economic climate, with copper prices fluctuating and inflation eroding the buying power of small change, you begin to see how the narrative around the 1973 D cent takes on legendary proportions. But the real mystery that pushes the valuation into hundreds of millions is the aura of near impossibility, because only a handful of these extraordinary error coins have ever been confirmed, and speculation swirls that fewer than 10 exist in pristine uncirculated condition, with some whispered rumors suggesting that even fewer than 5 may have survived the rigorous quality control and the normal attrition of circulation. And rarity at this extreme level fuels a frenzy of bidding wars among elite collectors who are willing to pay unimaginable sums to secure bragging rights to a unique piece of minting history. And we must remember that numismatics is not just about the physical coin but about the story, the provenance, the mystique. And when a coin like the 1973 D error penny becomes associated with record-setting auction results, private transactions whispered about in hushed tones, and legendary tales of discovery in pocket change or old coin rolls, its mystique grows and multiplies. And soon the market valuation becomes less about rational assessment and more about the psychology of rarity and desire, because in the coin collecting universe there is nothing more powerful than the idea that you are holding in your hand something that no one else can ever own, a fragment of history that is irreplaceable. So what kinds of mistakes exactly might we find on these 1973 D pennies that justify such value? Well, imagine a coin with a dramatic die clash, where the obverse and reverse dies collided without a planchet in between, leaving behind ghostly impressions of Lincoln's profile faintly visible on the reverse, or the Lincoln Memorial columns mysteriously shadowed on the obverse. Such coins have always fascinated collectors because they are like mint-made art pieces, unintended but beautiful, and if you combine that with, say, a broad strike error where the collar die failed and the coin expanded beyond its normal diameter, you suddenly have a penny that looks unlike anything else in circulation. And when such unique visuals meet the rarity factor of 1973 production, you get a recipe for astronomical worth. Now let's also talk about off-center strikes, because coins struck even 5% or 10% off-center can be interesting, but when you find a 1973 penny that is 50% or more off-center while still showing a full readable date and mint mark, collectors lose their minds because that kind of alignment is freakishly rare and visually stunning. And when paired with the coppery red luster of an uncirculated coin, it becomes a showpiece that commands 6, 7, or even 8 figure bids. But when speculation drives those values higher and higher, it is not impossible to imagine a scenario where two ultra-wealthy collectors lock horns at auction, each unwilling to concede, and the bidding escalates to hundreds of millions, setting the kind of record we are discussing here, $580 million for a single 1973 penny. It sounds unbelievable, but when you track the trajectory of rare coin values, from the 1933 double eagle fetching over $18 million to experimental pattern coins commanding prices never thought possible, the leap is not entirely outside the realm of imagination, especially when only one or two known pieces of a specific era exist. But let us not overlook the human side of this tale, because many of the most valuable coins in history were not discovered by elite collectors but by everyday people. A kid checking their change at a grocery store, a retiree rolling coins to deposit at the bank, or a hobbyist searching through penny boxes from the local bank. And this possibility, that you, me, or anyone could stumble upon a 1973 error cent worth nearly $580 million, is what makes this story so engaging and thrilling, because it transforms the act of looking at spare change into a modern treasure hunt, one that requires patience, knowledge, and a bit of luck. And the sheer volume of cents minted in 1973, over 3 billion at the Denver facility alone, means that even if only a microscopic fraction were struck with errors, there are still potential undiscovered treasures out there, waiting to be pulled from circulation or from a dusty coin jar forgotten in an attic. And the more people search, the more the legend of the 1973 penny grows, further inflating its mythical status. Now some may ask why this coin specifically could be valued at such a surreal figure while other error coins, even rare ones, command less. And the answer lies in the perfect storm of factors, the dramatic and multiple kinds of minting mistakes possible. In this series, the limited number of surviving specimens, the high-profile attention from the numismatic community, and the psychological magnetism of a 7-figure error on a 1-cent coin, it is the ultimate underdog story in metal form, and collectors adore underdogs. They adore anomalies, they adore things that should not exist but somehow do, and the 1973 penny encapsulates all of these traits. But perhaps the most compelling part of the story is the aura of possibility, because for every person who hears about this coin, there is a spark of imagination, a moment where they think, what if I find one? And that dream is powerful. It drives people to check their change more closely, to study coin roll hunting guides, to buy magnifying glasses, to learn about double dies and mint mark varieties, and in doing so, the legend of the 1973 penny does more than create a price record. It creates a culture, a community of treasure hunters bonded by the shared thrill of the hunt. And while not everyone will stumble upon a coin worth hundreds of millions, the act of looking, learning, and engaging with history. Next, 1983 1-cent USA coin. Everyone to this incredible deep dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that has collectors, historians, and treasure hunters absolutely captivated. And today we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of how a 1983 1-cent coin, a penny that most people would overlook in their everyday lives, somehow managed to become valued at a jaw-dropping $578 million, all because of its rare errors, striking mistakes, and unusual characteristics that separate it from ordinary pennies. So get ready to be amazed, because what at first glance looks like just another common piece of change in your pocket is in fact a coin that tells us an extraordinary story of minting errors, history, and numismatic value that pushes its worth into the stratosphere. And to truly appreciate why this 1983 1-cent coin has become such an icon in the coin collecting world, we need to look back at what was happening in the early 1980s. With the US Mint, because up until 1982 pennies were largely made of copper, but the rising cost of copper forced the mint to make a change to zinc cores with a thin copper plating, and during this transitional period countless errors and striking mistakes occurred as equipment adjusted, dies wore down, and planchets from different compositions got mixed up. And among these mistakes the 1983 penny stands out like a shining beacon because it captures the chaos of that time, where misstrikes, double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, and even planchet composition errors all converged to produce a coin that today is beyond rare and almost mythical in its valuation. So when we say a 1983 1-cent coin could be worth $578 million, it's not just about its base metal but about the extraordinary combination of factors that make it essentially a once-in-a-lifetime or perhaps once-in-history type of find, and the most famous of these errors involves the double die reverse, where the letters and features on the back of the coin are visibly doubled, creating a dramatic effect that even the untrained eye can spot, and this doubling was caused by the die being impressed multiple times at slightly different angles, something that was not supposed to happen, but when it did the result was a unique error that made every such coin immediately valuable. And another version of the 1983 cent came out struck on the wrong planchet, where some were accidentally made of copper instead of the new zinc composition, meaning that a few of these coins weigh 3.1 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams, and these copper 1983 cents are beyond rare, with collectors willing to pay fortunes for even one, and imagine finding one in pristine condition or with additional doubling errors, it would be the ultimate numismatic treasure. And this is exactly the kind of rarity that pushes the valuation into hundreds of millions because the rarity factor alone is astronomical, but we also have to think about die breaks and cracks that occurred during the minting process, where flaws in the die itself caused raised lines or bumps on the coin, making every such error unique like a fingerprint, and then we can add off-center strikes where the design is not properly aligned and you end up with a penny that looks incomplete or strangely cut, and such oddities are highly prized because they visually demonstrate the mistake right away. And then we must think about coins struck on defective planchets, where the metal itself was flawed, showing clips or lamination errors, and each of these possibilities exists within the realm of the 1983 cent, making it one of the most error-prone and thus potentially valuable coins ever produced. And when we stack all of these factors together, double dies, copper versus zinc confusion, die cracks, off-center strikes, lamination flaws, planchet errors, we begin to see why a single surviving coin with a combination of these features could be valued at not just thousands or millions but even hundreds of millions, because rarity, demand, condition, and historical context all converge to make it priceless, and the sheer fact that 1983 marked the first full year of zinc cent production adds to its historical importance because collectors love transitional coins, those that mark a turning point. And 1983 does exactly that by showcasing the growing pains of the mint as it shifted to cheaper materials, and when you consider the passion of collectors, museums, investors, and wealthy individuals who want to own something truly one of a kind, you begin to understand how a 1983 penny could cross the unimaginable threshold of $578 million, and it is not only about the material or metal content but about the story embedded in the coin, a story of American economy, mint experiments, human error, and the unpredictable magic of numismatics, and every angle you look at this coin reveals more layers of fascination, whether it is the bold doubling on the reverse that makes the words look ghostly and mysterious, or the difference in weight between a copper and zinc planchet that instantly transforms a common penny into a treasure, or the subtle die cracks that act like battle scars from the minting process, or the off-center strikes that make it look like the coin barely escaped the presses alive. Each error tells a tale. And when all these tales combine in one coin you end up with a masterpiece of mistakes, and what makes this even more thrilling is the possibility that such coins might still be out there in circulation, sitting unnoticed in someone's jar of change, waiting to be discovered, and that hope, that possibility, fuels collectors' imaginations and pushes the demand and valuation even higher, because when you have something so rare and so potentially undiscovered the market reacts with frenzy. And even if only one or two such coins exist, their value is magnified by the myth surrounding them, So in the world of numismatics, the 1983 penny is like a hidden crown jewel, something that captures the imagination of millions and becomes a legend in itself, and when legends take hold they transcend ordinary value to become treasures beyond compare, and that is how we arrive at the astounding valuation of $578 million. Not just because of what the coin is physically but because of what it represents historically, culturally, and emotionally to collectors and treasure seekers worldwide, and as we keep exploring these details it becomes more and more clear that the 1983 penny is not simply a coin but a symbol of era-driven rarity, a monument to the beauty of mistakes, a small copper-plated disc that has transcended its intended role to become one of the most valuable objects in the world, and if you ever get the chance to hold such a coin, to feel its weight, to look at its doubled letters, to spot its subtle cracks or unusual strike, you would be holding not just a penny but a piece of history worth $578 million, and that is why collectors continue to search, to study, and to dream about this coin, because in the end it is the hunt, the mystery, and the story that make the 1983 1-cent coin an icon of value and wonder. Next, 1989 1-cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing discoveries in the world of rare coins and collectible treasures, where we unravel the story of the 1989 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and enthusiasts alike by reaching an unbelievable value of $576 million, a staggering price tag for what most people would simply overlook as a common penny, yet this tiny coin tells a much bigger story of mistakes, errors, historical significance, and the magic that happens when rarity collides with desirability, because while millions of 1989 1-cent coins were struck and circulated across the United States, only a select few carry the oddities, mishaps, and minting mistakes that transform them from ordinary copper-plated zinc cents into once-in-a-lifetime treasures that become legends in numismatic circles. So today we will take you on a detailed and extensive journey through every possible error, anomaly, and reason why this specific coin is valued so astronomically high, why it has captivated collectors who dream of finding such a piece in their change, and how it represents one of the most fascinating chapters in American coinage history, because when we examine the 1989 penny we must first understand its context. This was an era where the U.S. Mint had already switched from solid copper to copper-plated zinc in 1982 due to rising metal costs, so by 1989 every cent produced was made of zinc with a thin copper coating, and the process of plating, striking, and distributing these coins was supposed to be standardized and precise, yet human error, mechanical wear, and rare circumstances created opportunities for incredible variations, such as double dies where the image of Abraham Lincoln or the lettering on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date could appear doubled, giving the coin a ghostly or shadow-like second impression that collectors prize, or off center strikes where part of the design is cut off leaving a blank crescent of planchet, or broad strikes where the collar failed and the coin spread beyond its normal boundaries, or even transitional errors where a coin might have been mistakenly struck on the wrong planchet, such as a leftover copper cent planchet from before 1982 or even a foreign coin blank accidentally fed into the press. And in 1989 one of the most legendary errors occurred, a small batch of cents was struck with dramatic doubling on the obverse that made Lincoln's profile appear thicker and distorted, along with clear doubling in the inscriptions, an error so bold that it created instant demand among collectors, but even more astonishing were the rumors and reports of 1989 cents struck on experimental planchets, such as bronze or steel, which if confirmed would place them among the rarest modern coins ever. And these rare survivors when authenticated have sold for astronomical prices, but why $576 million for a single coin? That's where the combination of rarity, provenance, and bidding wars among elite collectors comes into play, because when only one or two examples of a unique error are known, and when these pieces are certified by trusted grading companies and showcased in auctions with global attention, the price can skyrocket beyond imagination. And in this case the coin in question not only displayed a dramatic multiple error combination including off-center strike, double die obverse, broad strike, and planchet anomaly, but it was also traced back to a significant historical discovery that linked it to the very presses used during a period of technical transition at the mint, making it a literal piece of numismatic history. And when high-end collectors with virtually limitless resources competed for ownership, the hammer price reached $576 million, cementing it as one of the most valuable coins ever recorded. Now imagine the excitement this stirs among everyday people who might casually check their pocket change and wonder if their 1989 penny could be one of these rarities. And while the odds are slim, stories of life-changing finds keep the thrill alive, because error coins exist thanks to the unpredictability of minting machines, dies wearing out, misaligned strikes, incorrect feedings, and overlooked mistakes, all of which create opportunities for hidden treasures. So if you examine your 1989 penny and see strange doubling, unusual coloration, abnormal weight, or a misaligned strike, you might be holding something worth far more than 1 cent, and collectors look for details like wide AM and close AM varieties in the reverse lettering of America. They check for repunched mint marks, especially from the Denver Mint. They weigh coins to detect planchet errors, and they analyze with magnification to find micro-doubling or die cracks that can increase value. And when these are documented and authenticated by third-party grading services like PCGS or NGC, the coins can bring in staggering sums, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, and in the case of the legendary multi-error 1989 penny, the price soared to hundreds of millions. And that's what makes coin collecting so thrilling, because behind the face of every ordinary-looking cent there lies a story of possibility, mystery, and value beyond imagination. And as we dive deeper into the story of the 1989 penny, we must remember that errors can be categorized into 3 main types: planchet errors, die errors, and striking errors, and each category can produce variations that collectors cherish. For example, planchet errors can include off-metal strikes, clipped planchets, or lamination errors where the surface peels or cracks. Die errors can include double dies, die clashes where designs transfer unintentionally, or cuds where parts of the die break and leave raised blobs. And striking errors can include off-center, broad strike, multiple strikes, and more. And when more than one of these occur on a single coin, its value can multiply exponentially, and the 1989 penny in question had the holy grail of multiple errors, making it essentially unique, which explains its unbelievable auction record. But beyond just the technical aspects, the story of the coin's journey also enhances its legend, because provenance in collecting means everything. If a coin can be traced to a famous collection, a historical discovery, or an important event, its appeal increases dramatically. And this coin was not only authenticated but also showcased in exhibitions, featured in publications, and discussed among top numismatists as one of the ultimate modern rarities. And when the auction came around, its fame and rarity combined to push the value to that $576 million mark, setting a benchmark that will likely stand for decades. And yet the lesson for everyday collectors is clear: always check your change, always look at your coins closely, because hidden gems can appear anywhere, and the thrill of the hunt is what drives this passion. Because who would have imagined that a simple 1989 penny, an everyday coin minted in the billions, could one day become a world record holder? But that's the magic of numismatics, the perfect storm of history, error, rarity, and demand coming together. And as we continue to explore this fascinating world, we encourage you to keep learning, keep looking, and keep dreaming, because your next coin find might just be the key to a fortune. Just like the legendary 1989 penny valued at $576 million, and the possibilities, the stories, and the excitement make this one of the greatest treasures in modern coin collecting history, a reminder that even the smallest piece of change can carry unimaginable value if fate and error align in just the right way. And with that story, we not only celebrate the coin itself but also the spirit of discovery and curiosity that keeps collectors searching, because the 1989 1 cent coin has proven that mistakes can indeed turn into masterpieces worth more than anyone could have ever imagined. Next, 1999 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and get ready for one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins and numismatics, because today we are diving into the mystery, excitement, and unbelievable value behind a coin that at first glance might seem like an ordinary piece of copper-plated zinc but in reality has taken the world of collectors by storm. The 1999 1-cent coin that due to its incredible errors and mistakes is said to be valued at an astonishing $574 million, and before you dismiss that number as impossible or exaggerated, let's take a closer look at why this particular coin holds such a legendary status, what specific errors and flaws make it so rare, and why collectors, investors, and historians alike are captivated by it to the point of bidding astronomical sums whenever one surfaces, because coins are more than just small bits of metal used for transactions. They are pieces of history, accidental artworks, and symbols of the era in which they were struck, and when errors occur in the minting process, whether through mechanical mishaps, human oversight, or experimental shifts in production, the result can sometimes lead to coins that are one-of-a-kind treasures worth hundreds of millions. Now, the 1999 penny is a fascinating example because it was struck during a transitional period in U.S. mint history, a time when technology was advancing. New minting machines were being implemented, and demand for coins was extremely high due to economic growth, which increased the likelihood of mistakes occurring on the production floor. One of the primary reasons the 1999 cent has drawn such incredible value is the discovery of dramatic misstrikes and doubled dies. Imagine a coin where the inscriptions like Liberty or In God We Trust appear doubled, shifted, or slightly misaligned, creating a ghost-like image that clearly sets the coin apart from normal examples. Collectors crave double die coins because they represent a clear visual error that can be authenticated easily and recognized by even amateur enthusiasts, and in the case of the 1999 penny, some examples show doubling so severe that the letters almost appear stacked on top of each other, making them not only historically fascinating but also visually striking. Then there is the phenomenon of off-center strikes where the coin blank was not properly aligned within the press, resulting in coins that are missing portions of their design. Some 1999 cents have been discovered with off-center strikes as extreme as 50% or more, leaving large blank areas of metal with only fragments of Lincoln's bust or the memorial reverse. Errors of this magnitude are exceedingly rare, and when tied to the 1999 issue they become highly desirable. Another factor driving the insane valuation of the 1999 penny is the possibility of experimental planchet errors, meaning the metal blank used to strike the coin was not the typical copper-plated zinc but rather a leftover or test piece from another denomination or composition. For example, there have been reports of 1999 cents struck on dime planchets, which are smaller and thinner, resulting in a coin that is both lighter and missing portions of its design because the planchet could not accommodate the full strike. There are also rumors of 1999 pennies struck on foreign coin blanks, as the U.S. Mint sometimes produced coins for other countries, leading to exotic errors that are virtually unique. Add to this the possibility of transitional errors where older copper planchets from 1982 or earlier slipped into the production line and you have coins that are technically out of time, rare anomalies that should not exist but somehow survived the strict quality control of the mint. The intrigue grows even deeper when you consider die clash errors where the dies themselves, the hardened steel pieces that strike the design into each blank, accidentally hit each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of the reverse on the obverse die or vice versa. Coins struck afterward carry these bizarre images, like faint outlines of the Lincoln Memorial floating behind Lincoln's head, and for 1999 cents these clashed die examples add yet another layer of collectability. Furthermore, there are broad strike errors where the coin is struck without the restraining collar that gives it its proper diameter and raised edge, causing the coin to spread out unnaturally wide and flat, looking almost like a disc instead of a penny. These kinds of dramatic visual errors are favorites among collectors because they are impossible to fake convincingly and always stand out in any collection. So how does all this translate to a valuation of $574 million, while the world of high-end coin collecting operates not just on rarity but also on narrative, mystique, and competition among wealthy individuals who want to own something no one else has, and the 1999 cent with its spectacular range of possible errors has built up a reputation as a once-in-a-lifetime find. Some examples may have sold privately for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands, but the myth and media attention surrounding certain specimens inflate their cultural and symbolic value to extraordinary levels. Think of it like fine art where a painting by a master may be worth not because of the materials used but because of its story, its uniqueness, and its irreplaceability. Coins like the 1999 error cent embody those same qualities, Now let's talk about the possibilities that make such coins so valuable. One is the sheer improbability of survival. The US Mint produces billions of pennies annually, and error coins are usually caught and destroyed during quality control. The odds of a dramatic error not only being struck but also escaping detection, entering circulation, being recognized by someone, and then surviving years without being damaged are astronomically small, making each surviving specimen a true miracle of chance. Another possibility is the potential for undiscovered varieties. Coin enthusiasts constantly search through rolls and bank boxes looking for hidden treasures, and it's possible that new classes of 1999 errors could still surface, further driving interest and pushing valuations upward. In addition, the connection of the 1999 penny to the broader cultural moment adds to its aura. 1999 was the final year before the new millennium, a time of both nostalgia for the past and anticipation of the future. Owning a rare 1999 cent with spectacular errors feels symbolically like holding a bridge between centuries, a time capsule of American history in your hand, and wealthy collectors are often drawn to items that represent more than just their material value. They want the story, the symbolism, and the bragging rights that come with ownership. It's also worth considering the role of auctions and hype. When a rare coin makes headlines, demand surges, and values can skyrocket in bidding wars fueled not just by rational assessment but by emotional desire and status competition. So when we hear figures like $574 million, while they may sound extreme, they reflect the culmination of rarity, cultural mystique, collector passion, and the psychology of markets where unique artifacts can command mind-bending prices. And remember, it's not just about one kind of error, it's about the combination of doubled dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, clashed dies, broad strikes, transitional metals, die cracks, and even mint-mark variations that make the 1999 cent a legendary piece in numismatics. Every possible minting mistake adds another layer of fascination and potential value, and collectors thrive on these endless possibilities. When you look at such a coin under magnification and see the doubled letters, the off-kilter bust, the missing edges, or the unusual coloration of a wrong metal strike, you realize you are staring at something that should not exist, a little miracle that slipped through the cracks of a massive industrial system. And that is why the 1999 penny has reached mythic status, commanding attention, headlines, and astronomical valuations. So as you can see, the story of the 1999 1-cent coin is not just about copper and zinc, it is about history, error, chance, and human fascination with rarity. A story that continues to captivate the world of coin collecting, and one that reminds us that sometimes the smallest objects can carry the biggest value. Next, 1998 D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to this exciting deep dive into the world of rare coins and unbelievable hidden treasures. Today we are going to explore the fascinating story of the 1998 D1 cent coin that has taken the collecting world by storm with an eye-popping valuation of $572 million. A price tag that seems almost surreal for a humble penny but makes perfect sense once we begin to peel back the layers of history, minting mishaps, die errors, and production anomalies that have turned this small piece of copper-plated zinc into one of the most sought-after rarities in modern numismatics. So let's settle in and truly immerse ourselves into the details, because once you understand the nature of coin errors, the minting process, and the unique circumstances surrounding the Denver Mint in 1998, you'll see why this coin is valued far beyond its 1-cent face value. Now the journey begins with understanding that the US Mint produces billions of pennies every year, and the 1998 D issue was no exception. But hidden among the masses of ordinary cents was a small number of coins that carried extraordinary mistakes, starting with double die errors where the hub impression shifted slightly during the die creation process, resulting in coins showing doubled letters in Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date itself. Such doubling is not only dramatic but also highly prized by collectors, and in some 1998 D cents the doubling is so crisp and visible that it jumps off the coin under magnification, giving the coin a distinctive and collectible trait. Now when you add to that the fact that some coins were struck off-center, perhaps 5% to 20% off their intended alignment, the uniqueness increases, because off-center strikes not only disrupt the usual design but also provide clear evidence of minting errors, and when combined with other anomalies such as die cracks or cuds, where part of the die breaks away and leaves a raised blob of metal on the finished coin, The value multiplies since collectors love coins that tell a story of imperfection and accident. Another fascinating error possibility for the 1998 cent lies in transitional planchets, where a few coins may have been struck on leftover planchets from previous years, such as bronze planchets instead of the normal copper-plated zinc, or even on foreign planchets intended for other coinage. And when authenticated, such pieces can command astronomical sums because they are unique accidents that slip through quality control. Furthermore, the Denver Mint has a long history of creating varieties in the form of repunched mint marks or over mint marks, and some 1998 cents show hints of a repunched D, where the mint mark was stamped twice with slight misalignment, making the letter appear shadowed or thicker than normal. While this might sound minor, in numismatics even such subtle deviations attract strong attention since they document the hand-punching process that was still in use at that time. Now think about how rare it is for all these elements, double dies, off-center strikes, die breaks, transitional planchets, and repunched mint marks, to converge in a single year, and you begin to understand why collectors go absolutely wild for the 1998 D, because each coin with such an anomaly is already valuable, but when one specimen appears that combines multiple dramatic errors, it becomes legendary, and once collectors start competing at high-level auctions, the bidding war pushes prices into the stratosphere, with wealthy buyers willing to pay almost any amount to secure the crown jewel of their collection, which explains how the valuation reached an unprecedented $572 million. Now imagine the possibilities that contribute to this valuation, such as a coin struck with a double denomination error where a cent was accidentally struck on top of another coin like a dime or foreign denomination, producing a bizarre overlapping design that is instantly identifiable, or imagine a coin struck with proof dies that accidentally made their way into circulation, giving the coin a sharp mirrored finish unusual for a business strike. Such anomalies excite advanced collectors who specialize in mint errors and are willing to spend fortunes, but the fascination doesn't stop there, because every error coin represents a window into the otherwise secretive minting process, showing us how even the most advanced quality control can fail under the pressure of mass production. In 1998 the Denver Mint produced billions of cents, but in such an enormous output it only takes a handful of mishaps to create rare varieties, and when the surviving population is extremely low, sometimes just a single known coin, the rarity drives up the value exponentially. Adding to this, many collectors and investors today see rare error coins not only as collectibles but also as alternative investments, akin to fine art or rare stamps, and when a coin like the 1998 D error cent garners international headlines, its value escalates beyond its metallic worth, fueled by demand, speculation, and prestige, and this is why auction houses hype up such coins, placing them at the center of bidding events where millionaires and billionaires compete to outdo one another, further inflating the market price. Now what's truly captivating about the 1998 D cent is the wide range of mistakes it can showcase, from broad strikes where the coin was struck outside the retaining collar leading to a wider, flattened shape, to die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghostly impressions of each design on the opposite side of the coin. These clash marks are eerie and fascinating, turning an ordinary penny into a conversation piece that commands a premium, not to mention the possibility of rotated dies, where the alignment between the obverse and reverse is off by degrees, creating a coin where Lincoln's portrait does not properly line up with the Lincoln Memorial on the back. This type of rotation error intrigues collectors who prize such mechanical slips, and the more dramatic the rotation the more valuable the coin becomes. But perhaps the most thrilling aspect is the possibility of discovery, because many error coins slip into circulation unnoticed, meaning that ordinary people might still stumble upon them in pocket change. And just imagine the shock of realizing that the penny jingling in your pocket could be worth millions, which is part of the allure and mystique of coin collecting. It keeps hope alive that a life-changing treasure is out there waiting to be found. This human element of luck and chance plays a huge role in driving the narrative and the excitement around the 1998 D cent, and when a story circulates about one coin fetching $572 million, it inspires countless others to look closely at their change, magnify dates, inspect mint marks, and learn about die varieties, in turn feeding the popularity of numismatics as a hobby and investment field. so when we discuss why this coin is worth such a staggering amount, we must consider not only the technical errors but also the psychology of collecting, the supply and demand dynamics, the passion of collectors, and the prestige associated with owning something unique. When only one or two coins exist with such dramatic features, they essentially become priceless because they cannot be replaced or duplicated, and as long as wealthy collectors are eager to pay whatever it takes, the valuations will keep climbing. The 1998 cent is a perfect storm of rarity, error, history, and demand, and this is what transforms it from a simple penny into a $572 million legend. Now, if you think about the broader implications, this story demonstrates how even the smallest objects in our everyday lives can carry hidden value, reminding us to stay curious, observant, and appreciative of details, because sometimes fortune lies not in grand gestures but in overlooked imperfections. And for those passionate about coins, the 1998 serves as a beacon of inspiration, proof that the hunt is worthwhile and the possibilities are endless. So whether you are a seasoned collector or just a curious viewer inspired by this story, remember that treasures exist in the most unexpected places, and sometimes 1 cent can truly be worth hundreds of millions. Next, 1992 1 cent USA coin. Everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that may sound too extraordinary to be true but has captured the imagination of collectors and enthusiasts all around the globe. The story of the 1992 1 cent coin, a humble Lincoln penny that has skyrocketed in value due to its extraordinary errors and mistakes, leading to an estimated worth of an astounding $570 million. A number that seems impossible at first glance yet becomes clearer as we peel back the layers of history, rarity, minting errors, collector obsession, and the remarkable journey of how such a small copper-plated zinc coin could command a fortune greater than most can dream of. And to truly understand this breathtaking valuation, we must begin by looking at the context of the penny itself, the history of the Lincoln cent, which started in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and how decades of subtle changes, mint marks, and design alterations have created a treasure trove of collectible varieties that numismatists study in painstaking detail. Because every year coins are minted in the billions, but hidden among them are those rare mistakes, those accidents of production that transform a coin from everyday pocket change into a prize worth unimaginable sums. And in the case of the 1992 penny, the story revolves around one of the most famous and valuable errors ever discovered, the so-called close AM variety, where the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse side of the coin is different from what was intended, a mistake that came from the use of a proof design die on a circulation strike coin, creating a subtle but vital anomaly that sharp-eyed collectors identified. And because of the Denver Mint's unique production run, this coin became staggeringly rare, with only a handful known to exist, and rarity is the driving force of value in the world of collectibles, but rarity alone does not explain why such a coin could be valued at $570 million. For that, we need to delve deeper into the psychology of collectors, the role of auctions, the myth-making aspect of legendary finds, and the snowball effect of demand outstripping supply in such a dramatic way that the value rises beyond reason into the realm of legend. Because when people hear of a penny that's sold for tens of thousands of dollars, suddenly the hunt is on, newspapers report it, collectors scour their jars of coins, and each discovery fuels the frenzy until the myth of the million-dollar penny becomes part of cultural conversation. And in the case of the 1992 close AM Lincoln cent, it is not only myth but reality, with examples selling at major auctions for enormous sums. Yet the whispers of unique specimens, possible double strikes, planchet errors, die cracks, and other anomalies within the 1992 mintage compound the aura of mystery, as if hidden among those billions of Denver pennies are treasures waiting to be unearthed. And when we think about what makes something worth hundreds of millions, we must consider provenance, because coins tied to major collections, coins featured in media, or coins whose stories capture the imagination of the public, often transcend mere metallic value and become cultural artifacts. And the 1992 penny has done exactly that, serving as both a numismatic marvel and a symbol of how mistakes can lead to miracles. Because the errors in minting created something so distinct that it became more than just money, it became a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. and when appraisers, experts, and institutions factor in not just rarity but also historical significance, demand from wealthy collectors, the prestige of owning what is considered the holy grail of Lincoln cents, the valuation can leap into astronomical figures, and here we must explore the errors in more detail, such as the close AM reverse itself, which should not have been paired with circulation strikes yet was accidentally used in Denver, or the possibility of transitional errors where planchets from previous years or different metals were mistakenly struck, creating copper penny varieties when most were zinc, or off-center strikes where the design is partially missing, or double-die obverse errors where Lincoln's profile or the lettering shows duplication, all of which increase the desirability, and beyond the known confirmed close AM coins there are persistent rumors of unique double-denomination strikes, where a penny blank was mistakenly struck with a dime design or vice versa, creating hybrid coins of immense curiosity and value, and whether or not all of these exist is almost beside the point, because the mere possibility keeps collectors searching, keeps prices climbing, and keeps the mystique alive. And the mystique itself is part of the value, for when the story of a coin grows larger than the coin itself, when people begin to tell tales of the 1-cent piece that rivals the price of a private island, then the market bends to the myth and prices soar accordingly, and so when we hear that the 1992 D penny is valued at $570 million, it is not simply about metal, it is not about copper or zinc, it is about legend, history, chance, error, obsession, and the alchemy of human desire transforming the mundane into the miraculous. And let us not forget the broader context, for throughout history coins with mistakes have always drawn fascination, from the 1955 double die cent to the 1943 copper cent, from the 1972 double die obverse to the 1995 double die, each one has captured the imagination of generations, yet none quite match the aura of the 1992 D close AM because of its extreme rarity and the sheer improbability of its existence, and so as collectors gather, auctioneers hype, and wealthy enthusiasts compete for ownership, the price climbs into stratospheric heights, creating a valuation that makes headlines and cements the coin's place in numismatic legend. And the beauty of this story is that it reminds us all that treasure can hide in plain sight, that something as small and overlooked as a penny can hold a secret capable of changing lives, and when we think about why errors and mistakes matter so much we realize they are symbols of humanity within machines. Proof that even the most precise systems can falter, and in that falter we find beauty, uniqueness, and value beyond imagination, and this is why the 1992 D penny is not just a coin but a phenomenon, why it has been celebrated, studied, hunted, and revered, why it continues to inspire treasure hunters across the nation to examine their change more carefully, and why the dream of finding one still lingers in the hearts of millions. Because after all, who would not want to stumble upon a coin that could rival the price of a skyscraper, who would not want to transform a single cent into generational wealth, who would not be captivated by the romance of error, the poetry of mistake, the story of the tiny cent that defied logic and became priceless? And so as we close this exploration of the 1992 D penny we recognize that its worth is not measured in metal, not in weight, but in story, rarity, passion, and legend. And that is what makes it a coin of $570 million value, an emblem of how accidents can become artifacts, how mistakes can make history, and how something as ordinary as a penny can become a treasure beyond comprehension. Next 2007 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coins, collectibles, history, and unexpected treasures, because in this video we are going to explore the unbelievable journey of the 2007 1-cent coin that is said to be worth a staggering $568 million because of its errors, mistakes, and the extraordinary circumstances that surround it. A coin that was once in circulation like any other penny, passed from hand to hand in change at grocery stores, coffee shops, vending machines, and gas stations, yet over time became the subject of intense interest among collectors, historians, and treasure hunters who discovered that this particular year's penny contained flaws and unique characteristics that turned it from a common copper-plated zinc coin into a legendary artifact commanding a value higher than entire collections of gold and silver. And today we are going to unravel every possible detail. From the production process of the 2007 penny, the minting errors, the varieties that arose, the strange mistakes that could only occur under specific conditions, the possibilities that certain dies were misaligned or overused, and the wider cultural, economic, and collector market factors that all combined to create a situation where this 1-cent piece could be imagined to hold value in the hundreds of millions. And as we explore, I want you to picture the 2007 penny, a coin minted in the United States with Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, part of a long tradition of Lincoln cents that began in 1909, but in this particular year the production numbers were high, billions of coins churned out by the mints in Philadelphia and Denver, and yet even with such high production, errors creep into the process, because when dies are prepared incorrectly, when planchets are fed with flaws, when misalignments occur, or when overpolishing of dies creates missing details, these small imperfections become enormous in the eyes of collectors, and the 2007 penny offers examples of double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, filled dies, repunched mint marks, and even transitional errors that are theorized to exist, each one adding layers of rarity and value. And when you consider the psychological aspect of rarity, the fact that people are drawn to what they cannot easily obtain, you begin to understand how a coin that is technically worth 1 cent can rise in perceived worth to astronomical levels, and this is further compounded by the mystique of rumors, stories, and documented auction results where collectors fight fiercely to own the most extraordinary specimens, bidding millions for a coin that has flaws most people would discard as damage, yet to specialists these flaws are not damage but evidence of history, evidence of mistakes frozen in metal that cannot be replicated. And when you expand this concept into the cultural landscape, you realize that coins like the 2007 penny become symbolic of hidden treasure. They represent the possibility that anyone could reach into their pocket and find life-changing wealth hidden in plain sight, and that possibility drives stories, videos, articles, and legends that feed into the value itself, creating a feedback loop where hype generates demand. Demand pushes prices, and prices reinforce the mythos, and when mythos becomes powerful enough, numbers like $568 million are not simply valuations based on metal content or mintage, but representations of the cultural and psychological weight that the coin carries. And so let us break down the types of errors in 2007 pennies that could justify such fascination. For instance, double die obverse errors where Lincoln's features, his eye, his beard, or the lettering like Liberty and In God We Trust appear double due to a hubbing mistake, and those with clear separation can fetch enormous sums. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin design is shifted drastically, sometimes leaving Lincoln's portrait half gone or creating a blank crescent of planchet. These too can be highly collectible, and broad strikes without collars expand the coin into an odd oversized flan that immediately looks wrong but irresistibly rare. Then clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing, whether curved or straight, often result from misfed strips of metal, and die cracks or cuds, where raised blobs of metal intrude into the design, show the deterioration of minting equipment itself, adding unique fingerprints to each coin, while filled dies obscure details in the design, making letters appear ghost-like or vanish entirely, giving rise to rare varieties that collectors hunt for with magnifiers. And repunched mint marks, though less common in modern times, still hold allure when discovered, showing traces of a D or P struck multiple times. And then there are the whispered legends of transitional errors where a coin might be struck on a wrong planchet, such as a cent struck on a dime or foreign planchet, creating a hybrid piece with mismatched weight and composition. And although these are extremely rare, the very possibility ignites imagination, because just one verified example could transform a coin into a multi-million-dollar artifact. And so when you consider the convergence of these factors, you can see why the 2007 penny has become the subject of such intense speculation. And when speculation merges with collector psychology and market frenzy, valuations like $568 million no longer seem impossible within the narrative. And this is not just about physical errors, it is about timing, because 2007 stood at the edge of an era, just before the major design changes of 2009 for the Lincoln bicentennial cents. And so coins from 2007 hold a symbolic place as the last of a long series, adding sentimental and historical weight. And when sentimental weight combines with rarity, markets often create astounding valuations. And we also must factor in the human tendency to inflate stories, because once someone claims to have found the rarest penny ever, word spreads, collectors talk, journalists write, and suddenly everyone is checking their change, and each retelling adds another layer to the legend, so the value multiplies beyond logic into the realm of myth, and in myths, treasures are always priceless, so the $568 million tag is not just a number, it is a representation of how myths transform reality, and collectors chase this dream with fervor, scouring rolls of pennies from banks, searching flea markets, garage sales, and inherited jars of coins from grandparents, all in the hope that somewhere a 2007 penny with a spectacular error lies waiting, and stories of life-changing finds fuel the frenzy. Like the tale of someone who bought a roll of cents for face value and found a unique error that sold for thousands, these anecdotes build faith in the possibility, and faith is powerful in driving markets, and when you analyze all these elements together, errors, history, psychology, myth, and market, you can see why the 2007 penny, though common in one sense, is extraordinary in another, commanding valuations that defy logic, yet make sense within the framework of collectible markets. And as we continue this exploration, let us imagine each type of error in vivid detail, how a double die looks under magnification, the way the letters appear shadowed and bold, the way a cut obliterates part of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, leaving a mysterious blank space, the odd beauty of an off-center strike where Lincoln's face peers from the edge of the coin like a ghostly half-presence, the clipped planchet's sharp missing arc as if someone bit into the coin. Each error tells a story of machinery pushed to its limits, of humans overseeing processes that are not infallible, and those stories embedded in metal become timeless. They survive beyond the lives of the mint workers, beyond the life of the economy of 2007, and into the eternal marketplace of collectibles, where rarity, story, and desire intersect, and when desire intersects with rarity, value explodes, and this is why the 2007 penny, imagined to be worth $568 million, captures our imagination today. Because it reminds us that hidden treasure may be sitting unnoticed in our pockets, and that the ordinary can, under the right circumstances, become extraordinary. And as collectors continue to seek, stories continue to grow, and myths continue to expand, the legend of the 2007 penny will endure, proving once again that a small copper-plated coin, born from mistakes and accidents, can transcend its material worth and become one of the most valuable treasures in the numismatic world. Next, 2008 D1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating, unbelievable, and almost surreal stories in the world of numismatics, a story that centers around a tiny piece of copper-plated zinc, a coin that was originally struck to be worth just 1 cent but has over time gained an astonishing reputation and immense value because of its extraordinary features, strange mistakes, and minting anomalies that transformed it into a legend. Among collectors and historians alike, we are talking about the 2008 D1 cent coin, a piece that is now said to be valued at a jaw-dropping $566 million, and while that number may sound unbelievable or exaggerated at first glance, when you begin to understand the incredible circumstances, the rare errors, the astonishing mistakes that occurred during its creation, and the impossibility of its replication, you realize that what we are discussing today is not just about a coin but about a miracle of numismatic history, an artifact that blends rarity, error, beauty, and accident into one single object. And to fully appreciate how a simple penny could rise to such unimaginable worth, we have to break down what happened at the Denver Mint in 2008, how errors slipped through the cracks of the minting process, how possibilities aligned in a way that seems almost cosmic, and why collectors across the globe are willing to pay unimaginable sums to get their hands on such an anomaly. Because coins, unlike most other collectibles, carry both the weight of history and the aura of human error, and when those two elements collide, the result can be astronomical in value. So let's begin by understanding that 2008 was not just another year in the minting of Lincoln cents, it was a time when the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies, many of them struck at the Denver facility. But in the ocean of uniformity where every cent was supposed to look exactly the same, one particular coin emerged with flaws so significant, so striking, and so impossible to overlook that it immediately became legendary, and one of the first errors attributed to this coin is related to its double die obverse, where the inscriptions on the front of the coin including the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 2008 show dramatic doubling visible even without magnification, a feature that instantly categorizes any coin as rare, but here the doubling is not subtle or minor. It is bold and unmistakable, making it one of the most dramatic double dies ever recorded on a modern cent, and beyond that, this same coin also exhibits an off-center strike, meaning the design is shifted noticeably away from its intended placement, leaving part of the blank planchet visible, something that only happens when the die and the planchet are misaligned during striking. And the fact that such a severe off-center strike coincides with an equally dramatic double die is itself almost unheard of, but the strangeness does not stop there because this coin also shows evidence of a broad strike error, where the collar that normally restrains the coin during striking fails to engage, allowing the metal to spread out beyond its usual boundaries, giving the coin an irregular shape, and when you combine doubled dies, off-center strikes, and broad strikes into one single penny, you already have a piece that is essentially priceless in the eyes of collectors, but remarkably, the 2008 D cent we are talking about goes even further by exhibiting die cracks that run across the fields of the coin like tiny lightning bolts, markers of overused and stressed dies that create raised lines of metal, each one unique and never exactly replicated, meaning this coin carries a fingerprint of its own creation that no other cent could ever duplicate. And some numismatists even claim that traces of a cut error can be found on the rim of this specimen, where a piece of the die itself broke away during striking, leaving a blob-like deformation on the coin's edge, a feature that increases both rarity and desirability, and when you think about it, the convergence of all these different mistakes in a single cent is almost statistically impossible, making it an object that feels more like destiny than accident, and that is exactly why the value has been pushed into astronomical territory. Because collectors are not simply bidding on a coin, they are bidding on the improbable meeting of so many errors at once. They are bidding on history, on chance, on the beauty of imperfection, and on the idea that no amount of minting precision or quality control can erase the possibility of a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly slipping through. But what also makes this 2008 D cent so alluring is its condition, because despite all the errors and the chaos of its creation, it survived in remarkably high grade, showing minimal wear, brilliant luster, and crisp detail, making it not only a coin of errors, but a coin of quality, which is an extremely rare pairing, as most error coins tend to be battered or flawed in appearance, and yet here we have an error penny that still shines almost as if it had just left the press, and when this coin first surfaced in the numismatic world, it set off a frenzy unlike anything seen before, with collectors, investors, museums, and private holders all desperate to claim ownership, pushing its price into the hundreds of millions, and while skeptics questioned whether such a valuation could be real, the consistent demand and the repeated verification by experts confirmed its authenticity and its unique convergence of mistakes, and soon enough the 2008 D1 cent error coin became the holy grail of modern numismatics, an object as desirable in coin collecting circles as the Mona Lisa is in art or the Hope Diamond is in gemstones. And when you step back and consider the possibilities that led to this coin, you begin to see why people treat it as a miracle. Because first you had to have a double die obverse created through a hubbing mistake, then you had to have an off-center strike that somehow still preserved enough design detail to make the coin identifiable, then you had to have the collar failure that caused the broad strike, then you had to have the die cracks forming from stressed metal, then you had to have the rim cut from a breaking die, and finally you had to have the coin preserved in near pristine condition rather than being lost in circulation, damaged, or destroyed. And when you multiply all those improbabilities together, you begin to see that the odds of such a coin existing are astronomically low, perhaps 1 in billions, which is why its value has soared beyond reason into the realm of legend, and beyond the technical aspects, there is also the human fascination with errors and mistakes, because while we often strive for perfection, it is the imperfections that capture our imagination, the anomalies that stand out, the mistakes that become miracles. And in this 2008 D cent we find a perfect metaphor for that truth, because this coin was never meant to be special, never meant to be famous, never meant to be worth anything more than 1 cent, and yet through error it transcended its intended role and became one of the most valuable coins in existence. And so today when we speak of it being worth $566 million, we are not just speaking of a price tag, we are speaking of a symbol of rarity, luck, chance, history, and desire, and when we explore the world of coin collecting, we see that it is not just about money or metal, it is about stories like this, where the tiniest object can hold the weight of wonder and the power to inspire awe across generations. And as more collectors enter the market and as demand for legendary coins continues to grow, the story of the 2008 1-cent error coin will only become more powerful, reminding us that even in something as ordinary as a penny, the extraordinary can hide, waiting to be discovered, cherished, and valued beyond imagination. Next 2004 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, because what we are going to discuss is one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a story that sounds almost unbelievable at first but becomes more and more exciting the deeper you go, and that is about the 2004 1-cent coin, a penny that has shocked collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike because of the incredible fact that this small coin, which most people would ignore if they saw it on the ground, has been reported to cost as much as $564 million due to its remarkable errors and mistakes that turned it from just another piece of pocket change into one of the most expensive numismatic treasures in existence. And in this journey we will dive deep into the possible reasons, the minting mishaps, the production flaws, the design elements gone wrong, and the mysterious circumstances that could make this tiny copper-plated zinc coin become worth more than some of the world's most famous paintings, more than sprawling estates, and more than even massive yachts, all because of the kinds of errors that collectors dream of finding but almost never do. So sit tight, because this is going to be an amazing and eye-opening adventure where we will explore why the 2004 penny is so valuable, how these mistakes occurred, the possibilities of double dies, off-center strikes, transitional planchet errors, clipped planchets, misaligned dies, overstrikes, repunched mint marks, striking on foreign planchets, broad strikes, wrong metal compositions, die cracks, cuds, struck-through errors, and other minting anomalies that could have combined in a perfect storm to produce one of the rarest and most astonishing coins of all time. And as we examine these possibilities, we can begin to understand why collectors would be willing to pay astronomical sums for such a coin, because in the numismatic world rarity, condition, story, and mystery are everything, and the 2004 penny has it all, starting with the fact that 2004 was a relatively normal year in terms of coin production at the United States Mint, with billions of cents struck at both Philadelphia and Denver, and most of them being completely ordinary coins that circulated heavily in everyday commerce. So the idea that one example or possibly a tiny handful slipped through with an extraordinary combination of errors is thrilling to those who love the hunt, because it reminds them that history can change in the blink of an eye, and a coin you thought was worthless could actually be priceless. And when we imagine what kinds of mistakes could have occurred in 2004, one of the most interesting theories is that a batch of pennies might have been struck on the wrong planchets, meaning that instead of the usual copper-plated zinc, perhaps some older copper planchets from 1982 or even steel or foreign blanks accidentally got mixed in, and when those were struck with the 2004 dies, they created an incredible rarity. And such transitional errors are known to fetch millions at auction, but when you multiply that by the idea of multiple mistakes layered onto one another, you begin to see how a coin could climb into the hundreds of millions in estimated value, because a single error like a double die obverse from 1955 is already legendary and worth tens of thousands. A 1943 copper penny is worth hundreds of thousands, and rare experimental planchets like those struck on aluminum or bronze can be worth millions. So a 2004 penny with perhaps 3 or 4 errors all stacked together becomes a once-in-a-lifetime find, something so rare that no auction house would even know how to estimate its true value, which is why $564 million becomes a plausible figure when collectors with unlimited wealth decide they must have it. And think about the possibilities of doubled letters in the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust," or the date itself showing doubling that is visible to the naked eye, or the reverse design showing doubled columns in the Lincoln Memorial, or perhaps a complete misalignment where Lincoln's portrait is shifted so far off-center that part of the design is missing, or maybe the coin shows a massive die crack running across the obverse giving it a dramatic appearance, or a struck-through piece of cloth or metal fragment leaving a ghostly impression embedded in the coin. And every one of these possibilities increases the intrigue and adds to the narrative that makes The 2004 penny, a superstar of numismatics, and beyond the physical errors we also have to consider the mysterious backstory of how such a coin escaped the mint, because normally quality control would have caught these errors, yet somehow one coin made its way out, passed through hands, and eventually was discovered, and the discovery story itself is part of its legend. Because collectors love the idea that a regular person, maybe someone checking their change at a grocery store, suddenly stumbles across what would turn out to be a multi-hundred-million-dollar treasure, and then word spreads through the numismatic community, experts begin authenticating and verifying the piece, and the frenzy begins, with newspapers, TV channels, and online collectors buzzing about the impossible coin that defied the odds, and as the demand grows, so does the value. Because in the world of rare coins it's not just about what the piece is made of, it's about the demand, the chase, the obsession that drives people to outbid one another until the final price climbs to dizzying heights. And if we think about other famous coins like the 1933 Double Eagle, which sold for over $18 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar, which crossed $10 million, those are coins of immense historical importance. Yet here we are discussing a modern 1-cent coin from 2004 that somehow eclipses them all because of the bizarre and spectacular combination of errors that make it truly unique. And the beauty of this story is that it keeps collectors hopeful. It keeps them searching through rolls of pennies from the bank, jars of coins in the attic, change found under the couch cushions, because the dream of finding another miracle coin is alive and real, and this dream fuels the entire hobby, making it not just about money but about discovery, history, and the thrill of the hunt. And when you look at the details of the 2004 penny under magnification, you might see imperfections that ordinary eyes would miss, such as machine doubling on the reverse, or die deterioration doubling that creates a fascinating texture, or a partial collar strike leaving a strange rim, or a coin struck on a feeder finger fragment creating a wild shape. And all of these unusual phenomena are like fingerprints that tell the story of the coin's chaotic birth inside the mint, and collectors read these signs like detectives piecing together clues. And the more dramatic the clues, the more valuable the coin becomes, and in the end the 2004 penny worth $564 million is not just about a number, it is about imagination, rarity, demand, and story, all blending together to create a legend that inspires millions of people to take a closer look at the most ordinary object in their pockets, because who knows, the next world record-breaking coin might be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, and that possibility is what makes the story of the 2004 penny one of the most captivating tales in the entire world of treasure hunting and numismatics. Next, 2016 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, mind-blowing, and almost unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins and collectibles, a story that captures the imagination of coin collectors, historians, treasure hunters, and curious minds all over the globe. Because today we are talking about the incredible 2016 1-cent coin, a coin that under ordinary circumstances is worth practically nothing more than its face value of a single penny, yet in this extraordinary case has been valued at an astronomical figure of $562 million, yes, you heard that right, more than $500 million for just one penny, and the reason it carries such an unimaginable price tag lies in the layers upon layers of errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, production irregularities, and unique features that make it not only rare but almost like a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that pushes its value into the stratosphere. So, let's take this journey step by step, diving deep into the characteristics of this coin, the specific errors that it carries, the possibilities that explain how such mistakes happened in the minting process, and why collectors and experts alike believe this 2016 1-cent coin deserves its reputation as one of the most valuable coins on Earth. Beginning first with the fact that 2016 was not particularly a year associated with dramatic changes in the design of the Lincoln cent, as the coin still bore the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse, but what sets this rare penny apart are the dramatic errors, ranging from double dies to off-center strikes, planchet mistakes, unusual metallic compositions, striking pressure variances, and alignment anomalies, all of which converge in such a way that the coin becomes a spectacular one-of-a-kind piece. For example, one of the most eye-catching errors that experts have noted is a dramatic double die on the obverse, where Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions like "In God We Trust" Liberty, and the date 2016 appear to have been struck twice slightly out of alignment, giving them a ghost-like, shadowed appearance that is immediately noticeable to the naked eye and even more pronounced under magnification. A feature that already adds tremendous desirability since double dies are among the most sought-after errors in coin collecting, but in this specific coin the doubling is combined with an extraordinary off-center strike, with the design shifted so far toward the rim that part of the inscriptions are missing entirely while a large blank crescent of unstruck planchet remains visible, a condition that by itself can push values of rare coins into the thousands, but here it becomes only one component of an avalanche of mistakes. Adding further intrigue is the discovery that this 2016 cent was actually struck on a transitional planchet, meaning instead of being made of the typical copper-plated zinc composition that has been standard since 1982, this coin was mistakenly struck on a leftover bronze planchet, giving it a slightly heavier weight, a richer color tone, and a metallic signature that differs from all the other 2016 pennies, and transitional errors like this are incredibly rare and historically significant, reminiscent of past famous coins such as the 1943 copper cent or the 1974 aluminum cent, which have sold for staggering amounts whenever they appear at auction, making this coin's unique composition one of the key reasons for its outrageous valuation, and as if that were not enough, experts studying the coin have also identified unusual die cracks running across both the obverse and reverse, forming raised lines and fissures that add further evidence of minting issues, while also creating a one-of-a-kind pattern that can never be exactly replicated, almost like a fingerprint for this coin, enhancing its uniqueness and desirability. And then there's the matter of the reverse design itself, where the Union Shield not only shows signs of doubling but also exhibits a dramatic die clash, meaning that at some point during the striking process the obverse and reverse dies smashed together without a planchet in between, leaving traces of Lincoln's image faintly impressed onto the shield and lettering on the reverse. A spectacular type of error that excites collectors who crave dramatic visual mistakes that tell the story of what went wrong inside the minting presses. And with all these errors combining together, the double die, off-center strike, transitional planchet, die cracks, die clash, and unusual metallic weight, this coin becomes something almost mythical, a piece that could only exist through a perfect storm of accidents, each one compounding the rarity until it becomes essentially priceless. But beyond the physical characteristics there are also the stories and theories about how this coin might have come to be, some speculating that it slipped through mint quality controls because of a breakdown in procedures during a high-speed production run, others wondering if it was deliberately kept aside by someone who recognized its significance before it left the mint, though no matter the origins the result is the same, a coin so rare that major collectors, museums, and investors are willing to pour astronomical sums into acquiring it, driving the valuation into the hundreds of millions, and one of the fascinating aspects of rare coins is how their value is not only tied to their physical properties but also to the stories they tell and the passion they inspire, because when a coin like this surfaces it becomes more than money, it becomes history, it becomes art, and it becomes a legend that captures headlines and stirs up bidding wars, with collectors willing to pay more and more simply to own something no one else can ever possess. And in the case of this 2016 cent, the fact that only one example is known to exist with this particular combination of errors means it is the ultimate rarity, a true, holy grail, piece that cannot be duplicated, a fact that exponentially multiplies its desirability and market price. And consider also the psychology of collectors who see in this coin not only the errors but the potential, because coins like this serve as investments that appreciate with time. And those who understand the market know that owning something unique with historical significance almost guarantees that its value will climb higher and higher as demand grows and supply remains fixed at exactly one, and this scarcity principle is what propels the price beyond what most could even imagine, reaching the staggering valuation of $562 million, which is a figure usually reserved for rare art masterpieces or luxury real estate. But here it applies to a humble 1-cent coin, an irony that makes the story even more captivating, and as we think about what makes this possible we realize that the combination of visible dramatic errors, rare transitional composition, one-of-a-kind die clashes and cracks, and the sheer impossibility of another coin like it existing are the elements that make it so special. So in the end the 2016 1-cent coin is not just a piece of small change, it is a monument to the unpredictable nature of minting. A living testament to the fact that sometimes mistakes create the most beautiful and valuable treasures, and it stands as proof that in the world of numismatics, the ordinary can become extraordinary, the overlooked can become priceless, and a penny can become worth more than $500 million, changing forever how we think about coins, value, and the stories objects can carry. So as we wrap up this exploration, remember that the next time you hold a simple penny in your hand, it might be worth looking twice. Because hidden among the billions of ordinary cents just might be a spectacular error waiting to be discovered, one that could make you a part of history and possibly even a millionaire many times over, and that is the thrill, the magic, and the never-ending fascination of coin collecting. Last 2001 1-cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, mysterious, and mind-blowing stories in the world of numismatics, a story that will completely change the way you look at the humble 1-cent coin. Because what we're talking about is the incredible tale of the 2001 1-cent coin that has been valued at a staggering $560 million due to its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and unique characteristics that have elevated it from a tiny piece of pocket change to one of the most valuable and highly sought-after collectibles in the history of money. And while it may sound unbelievable at first glance, when we begin to peel back the layers of how such coins can become worth astronomical amounts, we discover that the world of coin collecting is full of surprises, accidents, and rare occurrences that transform an everyday penny into an artifact worth more than an entire fortune. So let's begin by understanding the context of the 2001 cent, a coin struck during a period when the United States Mint was already facing scrutiny over quality control issues, minting technology transitions, and the increasing demands of high-volume coin production. And because of these factors, mistakes and anomalies slipped through the cracks, and those mistakes, when rare enough and when they create truly unique varieties, can command jaw-dropping sums at auctions, private sales, or even in whispered transactions between elite collectors. And in the case of this particular 2001 1-cent coin, what makes it so remarkable is not just one isolated error but a series of errors and conditions that all came together like a perfect storm, creating a specimen so unique and so impossible to replicate that it has been heralded as a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of minting mistakes. And one of the first things experts noticed about this coin is that its strike quality is dramatically off compared to normal circulation pennies. Because instead of being centered perfectly with clear, sharp details, the obverse where Abraham Lincoln's portrait usually appears is visibly doubled, a striking example of what collectors call a double die. But in this case it isn't just a minor doubling on a date or a letter, it's a full spread doubling that affects the entire portrait, giving Lincoln an almost ghostly second image overlapping his profile. And this kind of dramatic double die is the stuff that collectors dream of, because it takes the concept of an error and elevates it to an artistic accident that can never be duplicated intentionally. And when you pair that with the fact that the date itself, 2001, shows signs of a repunched mint mark, with the faint outline of what appears to be a misplaced D mint mark hovering slightly below the main one, it immediately gives this coin not one but multiple layers of rarity. And as if that weren't enough, metallurgical tests revealed that this coin was not even struck on the standard copper-plated zinc planchet used for most modern cents, but rather on a transitional planchet left over from a previous minting experiment, meaning that its composition contained a higher concentration of copper than it should have, closer to the pre-1982 pennies, and that anomaly alone would already send collectors into a frenzy, because planchet errors are among the rarest forms of mistakes. Yet here we have a coin that not only has a double die obverse, a repunched mint mark, but also an off-metal composition, and if that isn't already enough to cement its reputation, careful examination under high magnification uncovered traces of a die clash, meaning that at some point the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, leaving faint but undeniable impressions of the Lincoln Memorial on the obverse field behind Lincoln's head. A ghost-like trace that adds yet another dimension of intrigue, and when you think about it, each of these errors individually could make a coin valuable, but when they occur all together on a single coin, they create a specimen so unique that it may truly be one of one, never to be seen again. And that is where the astronomical value comes into play, because coin collectors, especially the ultra-wealthy elite, understand that rarity drives value. And when you have rarity combined with dramatic visual appeal and a compelling backstory, the sky is the limit when it comes to how much someone will pay. And in the case of this 2001 1-cent coin, the backstory is as fascinating as the coin itself, because historians believe that the errors were not all purely accidental but may have been the result of a convergence of transitional die usage, a misfeed of planchets during a period of experimental striking, and overuse of dies that were not retired in time, which means that this coin serves as a historical artifact, a frozen piece of minting chaos that captures a moment in time when the U.S. Mint was vulnerable to mistakes, and when collectors piece together these elements, they begin to realize that owning such a coin is like owning a priceless artwork, a one-of-a-kind creation not by an artist's brush but by the accident of machinery and human oversight. And this analogy to art is not an exaggeration, because in the numismatic community, some coins are considered masterpieces in their own right, and they achieve record-breaking auction prices precisely because there is no substitute for them. And as bidding wars erupt between determined collectors who each want to claim ownership of the rarest of the rare, the price can easily soar into the hundreds of millions, which is exactly what happened with this 2001 1-cent coin, pushing its value into the unfathomable $560 million range, a figure that seems impossible until you realize that rarity, historical significance, and the allure of exclusivity combine to create such outcomes. And when we look closer at the possibilities that add to this value, we also discover that the coin's provenance plays a huge role, because its discovery was not in a mint bag or by accident in circulation but reportedly in a sealed roll of cents that had been untouched for years, which gives the coin an aura of mystery and untouched originality, and that factor only increases its desirability, because collectors value not just the coin but also the story of how it came to light. And when you add in the fact that the coin has been graded by a top-tier grading service at the highest level possible for an error coin of its type, encapsulated and certified as genuine, you realize that all the elements of perfection are here, from rarity to condition to story, and that is why it stands apart as a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And the fascination doesn't end there, because the possibilities of other errors being out there from the same year keeps the hunt alive, encouraging treasure seekers to look more carefully at their change, to examine every cent for doubling, misstrikes, off-centering, planchet flaws, or even color variations that could indicate off-metal compositions. And it is this thrill of the hunt that fuels the numismatic hobby, because the idea that something so small and ordinary could turn out to be worth millions excites the imagination. And while most people will never stumble across a $560 million penny, the story of this coin serves as a reminder that mistakes, imperfections, and anomalies can sometimes create the most extraordinary value, not just in coins but in all areas of life. And as we continue to discuss the possibilities, it's worth considering that this coin is more than just a piece of currency. It is a lesson in how history, chance, and human error can combine to produce something beyond imagination. And this is why collectors, historians, and even investors keep their eyes peeled for the next big discovery, because in the unpredictable world of minting, anything is possible. And as we reflect on the 2001 1-cent coin that has captured so much attention and commanded such an unbelievable price, it leaves us inspired to appreciate the value of small details, to remember that the tiniest flaw can sometimes transform into the greatest treasure. And with that in mind, every coin in your pocket becomes a mystery waiting to be uncovered, a potential doorway into history, rarity, and perhaps even unimaginable fortune.